How have stocks responded to major world and economic events? How does this help you understand how to pursue different types of investment strategies? Well, I've got some great charts I think you're going to love. I'm going to show you that, share some ideas. And again, hopefully this information can help you. And if you think it could help others, share this out. My name is Bill Wilkins, certified financial planner. Been doing this about 30 years. Hit the share button on the bottom there. Hit the subscribe. Smash that like button. And this will help it get out to more people and hopefully help them pursue some strategies as well. Anyway, let's get right into this. I'm going to show you this, some charts that I think are really important to take a look at. And again, this will probably shed some light on historically what has happened. So let's look at this. So this is a chart that says stocks usually take geopolitical events in stride. Obviously, we've got some situation going on here with Ukraine and Russia, or maybe when you're watching this in the future, there's going to probably be another event that's going to have an impact on the market. And just looking at these numbers, I think will definitely help you pursue some thoughts around how to respond to market events and how to look to invest going forward and how we look to invest for our clients with this. So let's take a look at these actual numbers. So if you look in here, I think the biggest one to point to is down here on the bottom. You've got the Pearl Harbor attack, December 7th, 1941. Obviously a horrible day. The market dropped 3.8% initially, and the total drawdown through that period, which was about 143 days, the market dropped 19.8%. So obviously this was the S&P 500, which is an American index, right? Back then, most of your earnings were coming from the United States with these companies. Now it's about 50-50, where you got half the earnings of companies coming from the U.S. and then half of it coming from outside the United States. So that's something to consider. However, top stocks, look at that, 19.8% drop. Took 307 days to recover from the bottom period over that 143 days, and then another 307 to recover. So about a year and a half, right, for that to recover. The other big one was the Iraq invasion of Kuwait with Saddam Hussein back in August of 1990. Initial happened, it was 1.1%, but then it ended up, total drawdown was 16.9%. And then the bottom took 71 days, but then it recovered over 189 days. So that was a big one. You had the U.S. terrorist attacks back in 2001. Initially, that market dropped 4.9%, and then total drawdown was 11.6% over 11 days, and it took 31 days to recover. So that is huge. And the other one to look at, I think, is interesting, is the Cuban Missile Crisis. So that's obviously was a very, very intense time if you were alive. You know, that was possibly the end of the world situation with nuclear bombs, and hopefully nothing like that escalates now, because that would not be good. But looking at what happened there, once the situation kind of recovered, let me get out of the way again, you had 6.6% drop is through an 8-day period within 18 days to recover. So that was very interesting as far as looking at that. Not as big as the Pearl Harbor. Obviously, we had an actual attacks up here. And then you had the Kennedy assassination, 1963. A little over a year later, was down 2.8% initially, but it was very short-lived and then recovered. So I thought that was very interesting to look at. In the 70s here, you had the Yom Kippur War, which actually led to the oil embargo. So initially the war only lasted like 12 days, and it was a small thing, but what happened after that was the oil embargo. So that really helped set off the market go down. That went down about 35% a year later on that. What happens is obviously people get very heightened, blood pressure goes up, things are happening, and if you look at this goes into even more depth of looking at corrections in the stock market. And let me see if I can blow this up a little bit more. Well, we're looking at drops in excess of 10% historically. This goes all the way back to 1980 on this chart. And it's a lot of good numbers to look at because you can see 17.1, 19.8, 15.1. So anything from 10% to 20% is considered correction. And I don't know if you realize this, but historically speaking, a correction happens about once a year. So most people don't understand. You get this, and 10% doesn't feel good. I mean, if you're pulling up your statement or looking at your accounts every day, let's say you've got a $100,000 portfolio, you're down 10 grand. You got $1 million, you're down 100,000. That stings a little bit, right? And then if you get a bear market at 20%, talking doubling that. So, but what's important to look at is this response from human beings, innovation, adaptability, what's going on, things that can be thrown at the market that can help it recover, and believing in that innovation going forward. Look what happens on this, guys. So this is amazing numbers. So 1 year return after the low. So I'm looking at the second to the last column here on the right. So over here, and then you get a second year return after the lows. So if you look at this, look at all this green, big time numbers going through all these years, way back, way back. So here's, you've got the with the pandemic. So you got COVID-19 dropped 33.9%, back up 74.8% in 1 year. Then we go back into 2008 and here, down 37%, 15%, 25%. Markets are recovering 19.7%, 30%. So the average return of the markets 1 year after these major corrections, 24.8%, if you can see that right there. So 24.8% on the market is returning up. And then second year is 37. See that? 37.4% over here. So if you look in this right in here. And then the other interesting thing to look at, which we pulled, and I had this on one of my other podcasts. This is called midterm. Let me see here. Midterm years see the largest intra-year pullback of the markets. So second year of a presidential cycle, what happens to the markets? Typically, you have a 17.1% pullback in here. And then the following year, you get a rebound of 32% in the market. Not the following year, but from the bottom, 17.2%. A year later, then we're up 32% during that period. So that is insane numbers. And we're actually hit about a down 13% here recently. Then we've come back. I think we're down about 8% over the Friday, and now we're at Monday here. So we'll see, or Monday coming up. We'll see what happens going forward, but a big rebound typically happens. So what does this all mean? How to look at this from an investment strategy standpoint? Let's look at this. Market timing. So people will think, oh, we think things are going to get worse. This I'm talking about for your money. Again, you're not going to need to touch for 6, 10, 15, 20 years. Do we want to try and jump out and then get back in when things settle down? The problem with that, historically speaking, and this is even from the greatest investors out there, it is extremely hard to do that. And this is a great chart that illustrates that. If you look going all the way back to 1990 to 2019, if you would have just stayed fully invested through all these crazy scenarios, so you had 2000, you had September 11th, you had the Great Recession, you still would average 7.7% just staying fully invested. You said, I'm going to jump out, kind of time things. If you would have just missed the best day of the year, each of those years, look at this return, 3.9%. You missed the best 2 days is 0.8%. And that, again, that's each year missing the two best days. If you miss the best 3, 5, and 20 days, you're actually losing money, guys. So that is insane looking at these numbers. So that's one thing we do not try to do with our client portfolios. For the money they're not going to need 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're not going to take money. And maybe it's a small, minute part, possibly, but it usually nothing. But basically, That part is going to stay invested. We might change some different types of things that we're investing in there, but we're not going to just put the money in a cash position and try and time that. Fruitful? No, historically not. Not a very fruitful effort to try and market time. So feel free to give us a call. Here's our contact information. You can take a screenshot of this thing right here. It's got our phone number, our email, and so forth. I'd be glad to set up a time and have a complimentary consult with you. In the meantime, I'm going to roll my disclaimers. I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening whenever you're watching this. Until the next video, have a good one. Thank you very much.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat.